Hey guys, this is Pedro from Team Tears, and today we bring you Angel Beats trial deck review. For the people who don't know, Angel Beats is the latest set that has come out from Weiss, Schwarz, and it's a pretty decent deck. I think it has some very interesting stuff. So, let's start with the yellow color. First you have Sekin and Yuri. It's a 500 character, 500 to assist to your frontal characters. And it has a second ability. The second ability is that when this card is reversed, you can pay 1 stock and you can send it to memory. This is particularly useful because there are a lot of memory conditions in this deck, so your cards get stronger, and this is one of the few cards that you have to respect these conditions. So it's a pretty decent card, nothing much, but it does its job. Next, you have the big fan of Guillermo Yui. I'm not sure if I spelled this correctly, but this card is pretty good, nonetheless. It's a 2.5k base, but it gets 1k in your turn, so it's a 3.5k in your turn. It's a pretty good card, I think, for a trial deck. Next, you have Iwasawa, Charisma Vocalist card. This card will help you also complete your requisites of involving memory, because this card, it's basically you can pay 1 stock when this card is placed from stage to hand, from hand to stage. Sorry, you may pay this cost. If you do, choose one of your opponent's level 0 lower characters and you return it to hand. And at the end of the turn, you put this card into memory. So what can you do with this card? You can simply attack. Send a key card from your opponent to the hand, and this card can even die. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the turn it will be on your memory. So it's a pretty useful card. Next we have the vanillas, the classical vanillas. It's a Canada 3k, nothing special. Then you have also more vanillas, Izako 3k also. Don't know why they can't be the same card, but we have 2 different vanillas that do the same thing, but okay. And next we have another Kanat, the 5k Kanat, that if you have at least 1 card in memory, it gets 1.5k. This card is pretty good, in my opinion. It's a 6.5k card for 1-0, you don't pay any stock for it. You have 2 in your deck, so I think this card will do you pretty good, since this is a trial deck. Next we have the Yui 2nd generation vocalist, this card right here. So this card is pretty interesting. It's not very usual for a trial deck, I think. It has a combo with a climax, and when you attack you can pay this cost and it gets 4k power. We're talking about 10.5k in a card from a trial deck, in a level 1 card. It costs 1 stock, the card itself, and this ability you just need a climax and to take 1 damage. You put one card from your deck into the clock. So it's an interesting card. Oh, sorry, and it also prevents your opponent from using Encore, which is a pretty big deal. So this card is pretty useful even late game. You can deny your opponent some fulcral cards. Next we have the vanillas. You have the foiled vanilla. That it's pretty strange for me, because I think it's the first time I see a vanilla card being the foiled one, but it's a pretty cool art, at least. Then we have the sorry guys, this name is pretty hard for me to say. Iwasawa, sorry. This card is an assist, a pretty interesting assist, if I might say so. Basically, or it gives to all your level 2 or higher cards in front 1k power. And it also has another ability that if the number of cards in your memory is 3 or more, this card gets the following ability. All your characters in front gets 500 extra. So basically, if you play this deck correctly and you have the requisites in memory, which there are more cards that need them, you can give 1.5k just with this assist. It's a level 2 card, so but it's still pretty good. Next we have the Maradona Yui. This card, I think it's also pretty good. The number of dead characters in your memory is 2 or more. This card gets 500 power, and the following ability. During your turn, this gets 1k power more. So basically, you're paying 1 stock for a level 2 card. That can be a 9.5k card. We are speaking about 500 more than a vanilla card with cost of 2 stock. So this card is pretty insane. Next, we have one of the cards that I think it's the most interesting of this set. You can, it's Canada. You can pay 2 stock, and then you can go search your deck for up to 3 dead characters. You reveal them, and you put them in your hand, and then you can shuffle the deck. You have to shuffle the deck, sorry. And then you choose 2 cards from your hand and put them into the waiting room. So basically what you have with this, you don't really have card advantage, but we have card selection. It's pretty good. You go get 3 cards. You are paying 1, and you have to discard 2, so it's 3 for 3, but you can get the pieces of the most important pieces of your deck with this card. I think this card can even, I don't know, possibly see constructed play, because if you have you're running a few copies of some important cards, you can go get them with this card. I think it's 2 stock, it's a little bit, but I think this card has a lot of potential. Next, we have the not so good assist, Fujimaki Noyama. It's a 1k card and gives 500 to your frontal cards. Just a basic trial deck assist, nothing more. Next, we have Takamatsu. Takamatsu, I've seen it in some constructed lists, this card. At first I looked at this card, it didn't seem that great, but it's basically 2.5k for level 0, and you can pay 2 stock. When this card is placed from... when this card is put into waiting room from stage, you can pay 2 stock. If you do this, you can choose a dead character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. So basically you're paying 2 stock to get a character from the waiting room. I don't think in this trial deck in specific it's that good of a card, but it might have some potential in constructed when you need to retrieve a very important card from your waiting room. Next we have Inata, which is basically when this card is reversed in battle, you can pay this cost and it goes to memory. It's nothing special, but it's what you have in the trial deck to send to memory. Basically, this deck doesn't have a lot of options to send the cards to memory, so you have to take your chances when you have these cards and always pay the cost, because there are not a lot of cards that do this effect. Next, we have the Fujimaki. This card has a misprint. It has a symbol of backup, but it's not a backup. It's just a vanilla 5.5k, nothing much. And then we get to the Takamatsu backup. It's just a 1/1. You pay 1 stock and you have 2k to one of your characters. Also, nothing game breaking. Next, we have Yuri. When this card attacks, if a card named Battle with Shadows is in your climax area, you may choose a character in your waiting room and return it to your hand. I think this card is pretty decent. You have 8k character for 2/1 for 1 stock. You can get card advantage with it, because if you play the climax and you can retrieve 1 character from your waiting room, which is also good. And it has a pretty decent body. I think this card is pretty good. We go to more vanillas. This deck has a lot of vanillas. It has a lot of vanillas and it has a lot of two cards. It's pretty different from the other trial decks when you run 4 copies of each. But this deck is a little bit all over the place. Just another vanilla. Next we have Just Like Sisters, Canada and Yuri. This card is, during this card's battle, you cannot play event cards and backups from your hand. So, what does this card do? This card is basically vanilla, but a bit more powerful. For the extra 500 power, you have a restriction. I don't think this restriction is that big, because you don't have those many events, at least speaking in trial deck level, you don't have those many events that interact with a specific character or that buff character. And you have the backups are also not that important, at least for this card, because it's pretty powerful by its own. So you have 2 stock, it's a level 2, and 9.5k, it's decent. It's not the best card in the deck, but it's pretty decent. Next, we have Model Student Canad. Okay, this card, I think it's pretty insane. During your turn, this card gets 500 power for each of your dead characters. What does this mean? This means that this card can be a 7k character in your turn. And it's pretty easy to set it up. You just have one copy on the deck. That's the lowdown. I think that this deck is a lot of good cards, but you just have 1 or 2 copies. Next, you have another interesting backup. It's another, you just have 1. It's a Yuri. And when you use this card's backup, if the number of death characters you have is 2 or more, you can choose one of your characters. You choose one of your characters in battle, and that character gets X, where X is equal to 500 multiplied by your level, meaning that you can. The longer the game goes, this card gets more powerful. It never loses impact, and it's a 1/1, so it's pretty good. And by itself, it's already a 1.5k backup. So this means that ideally, late game, this is a 3k backup for 1 and level 1, so it's pretty good. So we finally reached the level 3 of the deck, which is the soul per se of the deck, and in this case we have Otonashi and Kanade in winter. So what does this level 3 do? This level 3, it's quite different from the others that I've seen in the other trial decks, and basically if you play the deck correctly, this card gets 1k more, meaning that if you have 3 cards in your memory, this card will get the 1k extra, and the following ability. It gives all your other cards Act, and that Act, what it does, it buffs this card for 1k, meaning that you can make it a pretty big character. And the second ability is that when you reverse your opponent's character, you can pay 1 stock, and you can send the card that is in the center stage, if it's level 2 or below, to the top of the library, which is a pretty good effect. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad. I think it's a pretty decent level 3 compared to some other trial decks that we've seen, but time will tell if this card is really good or not. We finally reached the climax part, which for me it's the weakest part of this deck, and why this deck sometimes doesn't work that well, but we'll get into that. So we basically have just your basic soul rush card. It gives 2 soul to your characters. It's the red climax, and we have the yellow climax, which is the one that when this card is placed in the climax area from your hand, you put the top card of your deck in your stock, and it gives 1 soul to all your characters. So again, it's a lot of soul, and I don't think it works that well with your characters because they're not that strong. So, final thoughts about this deck. Is this deck really good, or it's just an average trial deck, or is it bad? I think this deck is not good, but it's not bad. What I mean by this is the deck has a lot of cards that are really good, but it doesn't work that well. I've played some games with this deck, and I feel that the deck is all over the place. You have just 2 copies of this card and 2 copies of that card, and there are a lot of memory requisites, and your cards to send to memory are not that good. But then you have some cards that are amazing. For a trial deck, I think this deck is some of the best cards that I've seen in a trial deck, and more unique. So, for example, if you already know the game and you're searching for a deck that is different from the let's put some characters in the table and attack and we kill the other guy, this is the deck for you, because it's a pretty different deck in that aspect. But if you are just starting the game, I don't really recommend you using this deck, because you have to have a pretty good knowledge of how the game works and when can you send the cards to memory, or the way that you manage your stock, because most of your cards to send to memory are level 0, and that will put a damp in your gameplay when you reach level 1. So it involves you already knowing a bit about the game, but if you like Angel Beats, you can try the deck, even if you don't know how to play the game, of course. But in sum, I think that this deck has a lot of potential. It has a lot of interesting cards, and some of them I think they will see constructed play. But in the end, I think that this deck is a bit weaker than, for example, the trial deck of Sao, which is pretty strong, in my opinion, and the Project Diva, which is also pretty strong. Simply because your characters don't have any survivability, but it's pretty fun deck. It gives you a pretty good feel of how the set works. Enjoy it. It has the only two colors that the set has. It only has red and yellow, so the feeling is here in the trial deck. It's pretty much what you will have in the set, a little better of course, and a lot more choices. But I definitely advise you, if you're a fan of the series or if you just want to try a different trial deck, this is the trial deck that you can try for sure. So with further ado, this was Team Tears and Pedro, and I hope you liked this trial deck review, and leave us a comment of what you thought about this.